This episode is brought to you by our very own Drop It community platform. The guidelines, structure, support, and inspiration you need to lose weight and actually keep the weight off. Coming live on July 1st of 2024. So if you're listening to this episode after July 1st, go click the link in the description of this podcast episode to join our booming and thriving community. If you're listening to this podcast episode before we've launched on July 1st, click the link in the description of the podcast episode to join the founding member waitlist. Everyone on the founding member waitlist is entered to win a $500 raffle that is going to be announced on July 8th. And you're also entered to win free lifetime access. So there's nothing to lose. You might as well join the waitlist. And you're also locked in at the founding member rate, which is a lifetime discounted rate. All of the specifics and all the information you're looking for are in the link of this podcast episode. So go check it out. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode 25 of the Drop It podcast. 25 used to be my favorite number. And those of you that ever had OCD when you were kids, or maybe you still have OCD now, are going to really relate to what I'm saying. But I used to love the number 25 because it goes into 104 times. So it's the most even feeling odd number. And the fact that 5 times 5 equals 25, I just had this weird obsession with numbers when I was a kid. And what that became when I got into my teenage years, and maybe even my early 20s as well, was an obsession with counting pieces of food or bites of food. So I'd have some chips in the closet and I'd go eat 5 chips or 5 saltine crackers, and then I would put them away. And then I'd come back and I'd eat 5 more, then I'd put them away. And then I would do that 5 times for a total of 20. And those of you... those of you that have habits like that around food, just know that those do go away with some intentionality. And I can't even believe I'm talking about that on a podcast. That's hilarious. That's a whole other conversation we're going to talk about on a different episode. But welcome to the Drop It Weight Loss Wellness Wisdom Podcast, episode 25. This podcast is tailor-made for those of you with weight to lose, those of you that are losing weight now, and those of you that are bathing in the success of your weight loss accomplishment. The topic of today's episode is becoming a slave to your diet. Now, this is something that people just don't really talk about. And the reason why people don't talk about it is because most of us are slaves to our diet. Most of us that are dieting are slaves to our diet. Most of us in the more the influencer or the podcaster or the content creation type of space are still slaves to our diet. And I want to talk about the full spectrum of what it means to be a slave to your diet and how to work through that to achieve what we all really want, which is food freedom. What we say is we want to lose weight. What we're really saying is I want to feel good in my own body with how I look and how I feel, and I want to not obsess about food or feel bad about food anymore. It's the freedom piece, right? And so many people, even people that are healthy or people that you think might be really healthy, still don't have really healthy relationships with food and are still slaves to their diet. Now, we're all optimizing for something. Everyone's optimizing for something. If you're dieting, then you're optimizing for health or for weight. You're optimizing for weight loss, right? Losing weight and being healthy aren't necessarily the same thing. You can go on a weight loss diet that's not healthy. You can go on a health diet that's not necessarily going to help you lose weight unless you're in a calorie deficit. Or you could go on a healthy weight loss diet, which I talk about every week. And that's a diet of mostly whole, real, and natural foods while also being in a calorie deficit because it's more sustainable. But I'm going to keep hitting that home until you do it because it's the most sustainable way to lose weight and keep it off. And anyone that's done it is going to tell you that. That being said, we're all optimizing for something. Think about sleep. A lot of people optimize for sleep. They'll buy the little watches, like the Whoop watches, where it measures how well you sleep, and then it tells you the next day what your sleep score is. So what happens when you wake up and you didn't have a good sleep score? You look at it and you go, oh my God, I didn't sleep well. I'm not going to have a good day today. And then your morning's kind of worse, right? A lot of us are optimizing for steps with a Fitbit or with an Apple Watch or a step counter. And what happens when you get to the end of the day and your goal is 10,000 steps and you only have 9,200? You go, oh, and it kind of messes with your head, right? A lot of us are optimizing for health by cutting out specific things that media is telling us is bad for you, and there's elements of truth. Things like seed oils, right? That's the big thing right now. Seed oils are bad for you. That's kind of the fad for the fad that we're seeing in the content space, in the health, the diet, the fitness space in the last year. But you know what's worse for you than seed oils? Being stressed out about the seed oils. Like, do you know what's worse for you than getting a bad night's sleep? Being stressed out and feeling some anxiety and putting a lot of focus on the fact that you didn't get a good night's sleep. You know what's worse for you than being 800 steps short on your goal? Stressing out and feeling bad about being 800 steps short on your daily step goal. Like, at what point are we so focused on the thing that we're optimizing for that we just become slaves to our own optimization? And it starts to almost become identity. When you're losing weight, when I was losing weight, I was like the guy that was on a diet. I identified as on a diet. My pronouns were he, him, on a diet. But really, it just starts to become like who you are, right? And when you get really tied to a specific identity as a weight loss guy, it's hard to then transition into being someone that wants to maintain the results, because you're always this guy that's on a diet forever. And, oh, how's your weight loss diet going? And that's not really what we want. We want freedom from all of it. We don't want to be stressed out about food. We want freedom from food. If you're on a diet like keto, and I talk about this all the time, but I'm going to keep saying it because it's very important to understand. And the more you hear something, the more you understand it. The more that I say the same thing in kind of different ways, the more that it sticks home for you, and the more that it stays in your brain. That's been my experience with learning from other people as well. When you go on a diet like keto and you cut out an entire food group, what you're really doing is becoming a slave to carbs. You're really just a slave to the thing that you're avoiding. Not always, but a lot of the times, right? This idea of cutting out a whole food group doesn't make sense. Cutting out a specific food might make sense. I ate 29 days in a row of Dairy Queen Blizzards one time, and I never had a Dairy Queen Blizzard ever again. It's been 5 or 6 years now, and that's fine. But I still eat ice cream sometimes. I just don't eat Dairy Queen Blizzards because of what it represents to me. It was just such a horrible time in my life where I felt like I didn't have any control. So now I exercise control by just not eating them, and I don't feel any temptation about it because your cravings and your palate changes over time, and I don't crave Dairy Queen Blizzards the way that I used to. But for a while, I was just absolutely a slave to my diet. I'm losing weight. I'm the weight loss guy. I'm the diet guy. I'm the guy that's doing intermittent fasting, so I can't go get breakfast with my friends. I'm the guy that's doing keto, so I can't go get a drink with my friends. I'm a guy that's doing the sugar-free diet, so I can't go be around sugar. Like, at what point is your diet controlling your life? At what point is your diet negatively impacting your life? Look, you need to make sacrifices to lose weight. You just do. There are things that you're going to have to sacrifice. But the idea that you're going to sacrifice so much that your diet takes over your life is not sustainable, because the way you lose weight dictates how sustainable your results are. The way you lose weight dictates how sustainable your results are. So let's say that you lose weight by counting every calorie in MyFitnessPal, right? And this is something that a lot of people do. I did this for the 6 years that I gained and lost 50 pounds, or the 5 or 6 years that I gained and lost 50 pounds every year from 2013 to 2019. I counted my calories in MyFitnessPal, and I gained the weight back every single time. And the reason why is because counting calories isn't something that I want to do forever. It's something that you can do in a container for a couple weeks at a time to figure out how many calories are in certain foods and to just get an idea of what foods have more calories and which ones have less. But the idea that you're going to go on this 3-month weight loss journey or 6-month weight loss journey by just counting calories, every calorie that you eat, doesn't make sense for most people unless you're planning on doing that for the rest of your life. This idea, you're just becoming a slave to what you're doing. It's running your mind. Counting calories is controlling your fucking life. You are a slave to MyFitnessPal if that's what you're doing for an extended period of time. You're the person out at the restaurant asking the waitress how many calories are in the New York Strip. No one else at the table wants to fucking hear you say that. They want to sit down and enjoy dinner with you. But you're asked how many calories are in it, you're just a slave to your diet. Again, counting calories makes sense in a container to figure out how many calories are in things. But you know what makes more sense than counting every single calorie for the rest of your life is calculating your maintenance calories. Let's say they're 2,200. Finding a 20% deficit. So multiply 2,200 by 0.8. That's about 1,800. Divide that by the number of meals that you eat per day. If you eat 3 meals per day, do 1,800 divided by 3. That's 600 calories a meal. And then just go online and Google 600 calorie recipes that are high in protein, made of whole and natural foods that I can make in less than 15 minutes that fit whatever budget you're working with. And there's your meal plan. Take 10 to 15 of those meals, write them down, all the ingredients on a piece of paper, set up a grocery delivery app, get the groceries delivered so you don't have to go to the grocery store and deal with the temptation, and you never have to count calories again because all of the calories that you're eating in those meals, the way that they're prepared, already fit inside of your weight loss target. Now, you go and you lose weight. Maybe you hit a plateau, you work through the plateau. Maybe your maintenance calories change over time because when you lose weight, your caloric need is going to decrease unless you are doing a lot of exercising. So pay attention to that. Maybe you hit a plateau and you redo the math and you make some changes to the meals to fit your new calorie goal. It might drop 25 or 50 per meal over the course of a couple months. And then you hit your goal. You lose 45 pounds in 3 months. And then what you do to sustain your results is you just create 10 new go-to meals or make changes to the 10 meals that you wrote down, and you just take your maintenance calories. Now they might be 2,100, and you divide that by however many meals, that's 700, and you just create 10 go-to meals that are about 700 calories, high in protein and filled with whole and natural foods. To set up a grocery delivery app, you never have to go to the grocery store. It's going to cost you $5 to $10 per week, so $20 to $40 per month to get the groceries delivered, but it's worth it because the time that it takes to go to the grocery store costs more than that. The gas that it takes to go to the grocery store costs more than that. The mental energy that it takes to go to the grocery store when you could instead be doing something else that is actually contributing to your health. Like, it just makes sense to get your groceries delivered should you live in an area where you can reasonably do that. That's how you lose weight sustainably without becoming a slave to your diet. And then when you go out, you just create some guidelines for yourself. And those guidelines might be, I just typically don't get an appetizer at a restaurant, or I just don't do French fries, or I pass on dessert most of the time. And you just create some guidelines for yourself that are going to naturally help you consume less calories. When I go out now, this is 5 years after losing 110 pounds and keeping it off. When I go out, I just have rules for myself that I follow 80 to 90% of the time. The rules are, if I'm drinking alcohol, I don't have more than 2 drinks. 80 or 90% of the time I don't. The rules are, I just don't get dessert at restaurants. 90% of the time I don't. The rules are, I prioritize sides of fruit and sides of vegetables over sides of potatoes and sides of French fries. I do that 90% of the time. Instead of a burger, I get a steak or chicken or some kind of just meat 90% of the time. And all those strategies are just ways of naturally consuming less calories without having to count them all the time, versus me going to a restaurant 5 years into maintaining my results and, hey, how many calories are in this? Hey, how many? And then trying to do math on my phone while looking at the menu, but also trying to have a conversation with whoever I'm at dinner with at the same time. It just doesn't make a ton of sense that you're going to do that for the rest of your life, unless you want to. Like, there's certain people that like doing that kind of stuff. That's not me. I don't want to think about food all the time. And I live down here in Austin, Texas. So a lot of the big influencers and the big content creators that you see that are selling, the idea of keto or the idea of animal-based diet or the idea of seed oils suck, all these different things. And again, there's certain elements of these that are true, but this is who these people are. Like, it's their entire identity. They can't go out and get a beer on Friday after work. They can't go out and get breakfast or brunch because they're intermittently fasting. They can't drink tap water because the tap water is bad for them. So if there's no tap water, if tap water is the only option, they just don't drink any water. And there's just an element of like, you may be over-optimizing for health. You may be over-optimizing for, in your case, you may be over-optimizing for diet or for weight loss in a way that creates an obsessiveness. And the obsessiveness is not sustainable, because what the fuck are you going to do after you hit your weight loss goal? This community isn't about how to lose weight as fast as possible. This community is about how to lose weight and then actually keep the weight off to achieve health by properly nourishing your body and feel good and look good and be healthy as a 95-year-old. That's what this community is about. And the first step is to get to a healthy body weight. But there's so much more than that. And how you get to a healthy body weight dictates the tonality for the rest of that journey. You're in such a good position right now to lose weight properly. I mean, if you just do what I just told you about calculating the calories, dividing the meals, getting whole and natural foods delivered, it doesn't have to be organic grass-fed meat. Whole and natural foods aren't necessarily more expensive. You can go to Walmart and get an 80% beef tube of meat for like less than $3 a pound, and you can go and get rice that you can make for like 50 cents per serving. Then you can go and get some frozen vegetables and throw that all together with some hot sauce and some seasoning. That's a $3 to $4 meal, maybe a little bit less. For breakfast, you can get big tubs of non-fat Greek yogurt. You can get some frozen fruit instead of fresh fruit because it's typically actually better for you because it is actually fresher since it's frozen right when it's picked. People don't really realize that. Frozen fruit is typically better for you because it's picked when it's fresher and then frozen versus fresh fruit, which goes bad really fast in the fridge and is more aged since it hasn't been frozen to stop the aging and the decay of the fruit. You can take frozen fruit and throw it in Greek yogurt with a little bit of honey and a little bit of cacao powder. That's about a $2 meal that's low calorie and really high in protein, whole natural foods. Same with that stir fry we were talking about. You can go and get a rotisserie chicken from Walmart or from Costco for $5 or $6 and cut it up and throw some of it in the freezer, and you've got 4 to 5 servings of chicken. And you can eat a diet of whole and natural foods for less than $10 a day should you just adequately prepare. And none of those meals take more than 15 minutes to make. The stir fry might take you 10 minutes. The Greek yogurt is going to take you about 2.5 to 3 minutes. And, the rotisserie chicken with whatever sides you want from Walmart or from Costco or whatever grocery store isn't going to take you more than a couple minutes because it's already made. That's how you sustainably lose weight. Create 10 meals. Most of us are eating the same things over and over again. We don't really realize that. So I'm a little further down this rabbit hole in that I am trying to I'm working towards optimizing for longevity right now in a way that doesn't make sense for me to even talk about this podcast because I want to meet you where you're at on your weight loss journey. I'm optimizing now for like how nutrition is impacting my skin, how nutrition is impacting my bone structure. And so I'm really moving far down the spectrum of wanting to live as long as I can, but it really starts with eating whole and natural foods. It really does. And I know it's like the fad right now, and we've got all these entertainers online, going through grocery stores and picking up candy and going, this bullshit, don't eat this fucking bullshit. Look, it doesn't mean that you can't ever eat it. I sometimes eat that stuff as well, but the idea that you're going to lose weight by going from eating 2 candy bars a day to 1 candy bar a day just doesn't really make a ton of sense because you're going to feel like shit and have a lot of cravings and be in a calorie deficit while also being malnourished. So ask yourself, have you become a slave to your diet or have you become a slave to whatever it is that you're optimizing for? Because everyone's optimizing for something. Everyone is optimizing for something. Maybe you're optimizing for entertainment because you watch Netflix all day. Maybe you're optimizing for money because you work your ass off all day. Like whatever it is, you're optimizing for something. Really question whether or not optimizing for that thing is serving you or if you become a slave to the optimization. What might you be able to do to get that same result without being a slave to the optimization or being over-optimized on that thing? It's absolutely possible. Food does not control me anymore. Food is something that now gives me energy instead of taking it away. Food is something that I look forward to eating. I don't dread it. Food is something where I don't typically count calories or really look at how many calories are in different foods. I just have a good idea of which foods are going to support me in maintaining my results and in building muscle and in these other health ventures that I'm working on now. And I don't obsess about it anymore. But now that I am a podcaster and a content creator and a community builder and work with people one-on-one with coaching as well, it's more a part of my life the last year than it has been the 4 previous. The part that y'all maybe haven't seen on my journey is I lost a bunch of weight right? I gained and lost 50 pounds every year from 2013 to 2019. And then in 2019, I lost 110 pounds from 2019 to 2020, and I've kept it off for the last 5 years. I wasn't the weight loss guy. So there were multiple times in that journey where I moved and reinvented myself. So in 2019, I moved from Spokane, Washington to Portland, Oregon. And when I was in Oregon, I lost all the weight. And I had a period of just hyper-focus on it. I lost a lot of weight. And then I developed some issues where I had a pretty unhealthy relationship with food that took me about 6 months to a year to really fully work through. And I was kind of the weight loss guy when I lived in Portland. Then I moved from Portland to Des Moines, Iowa. And don't ask why. It had to do with work, to answer your question. But really, Des Moines was the first time where I really stepped into the person that I truly wanted to be. So when I moved to Portland, I was the weight loss guy that was really cocky. And, oh, look at me, I just lost all this weight. When I moved to Des Moines, I wasn't the weight loss guy. I was just Nick. I wasn't Nick, the guy that used to be fat. I was just Nick Geoppo. And I moved out there and I met people, and it was the first time where I really presented and held myself in the way that I wanted to and to the standard of living that I wanted to. I was really dialed in with ultra running at the time, lived a very routine lifestyle, but also went out and had a lot of fun. And moving to Des Moines, it was a city of like 200,000 people. Being an outsider, that's not an area where people typically move to. It was just fun to move there and to experience a totally different style of life in a place where nobody knew me within 6 states in either direction. Like no one within 1,000 miles of me knew who I was when I moved there. So I could be anyone that I wanted to be. And I decided that I was going to be my truest self and absolutely loved it. After about a year in Des Moines, I moved down to Austin, Texas. This was like 2.5 years ago or so now. And again, in Austin, I'm not the weight loss guy. Or, when I moved here, I'm the guy that's running all these races. I'm the guy that has other things going on. I'm not leading with, hey, I'm Nick, I lost 110 pounds. Look at me, And I'm fortunate enough that looking at my body, you can't really tell, unless I'm bent over, unless I'm running and you kind of see the bounce of the sagginess of the skin. But most people don't look at me and go, that guy used to be really fat or used to be fat as fuck. So I'm fortunate in that regard. But sometimes people do. And when they do, I just wear it as a badge of honor. It actually makes me feel good now. I used to be insecure about having some loose skin. Now it's something that is such a cool point of connection. And it's been such a cool point of connection in my relationships as well. When I think about the best relationships that I've had with women, like this idea of what loose skin represents is the idea that I put myself through fucking hell and came out of the other side. And look at all these things that I learned. And look at how I can speak to this story. Look at how I can speak to what I've been through. Is it sexy that I used to be fat? No. Most people don't think it's sexy. But is it sexy when I look at a woman and say, hey, I used to be fat as fuck, and I worked through all of these things, and I learned how to show up for myself every day, and I've been doing it for 5 years. So you can rest assured knowing that I'm going to keep showing up for you and for our relationship the same way. Is that sexy? Yeah, it is. And it creates a lot of security. And I can say that with extreme confidence because I know that that's who I am, right? And that's how you can frame. See how I just took that? I took the negativity and I took the anxiety that I used to feel around body image and around loose skin, and I flipped it into a positive. You can flip things into positives that make you feel good and that help you present as the person that you actually are and that you actually desire to be. Anything that you think is wrong with you is actually your greatest strength. Obesity is actually your greatest strength. Should you just let it be, it could be the best thing that ever happened to you, because the person that you become on the journey is the person that you already are. They're just sleeping. They'll wake up when you actually start addressing these issues in a way that's sustainable, and you'll start seeing the world in a totally different way and start realizing that belief you had when you were a kid, that belief of, I can do anything. I can do anything that I want. I can be the president of the United States. I'm going to be an astronaut, a magician, a firefighter. Like, what was your dream when you were a kid? What was your thing? And then at some point you just kind of stop believing it, right? The real world sets in and you were told to be realistic. And we're told about the odds. We're told about the odds. You know what happens when you do the thing that you don't think that you can do? For me, I never thought that I would be where I'm at with my weight. I thought that I would always be obsessed with it. I thought that I'd always be having issues with gaining and losing weight, and I don't. And I know that I never will again. once you work through the thing that it once felt like it was impossible for you to do and that you once never thought you'd be able to do, you get the belief back. And then you start believing that you can really do anything that you want. And you stop using words like realistically. And you stop looking at data and statistics because they just don't really apply to you anymore. You've already beat statistical probability. And you realize that once you do that one time, the process is the same for doing it in every single other area of life. The process is the same for growing social media accounts. Like, I had no idea what I was doing. I started posting on Instagram in January with no experience at all. And we now have a flourishing community around sustainable, compassionate, and no bullshit weight loss. It's been 4 months. And we have 170,000 followers on Instagram. I launched this podcast a few weeks before that in the end of December of 2023, last year. Yeah, it's 2024 now, right? Yeah. 6 months ago, we launched this podcast. This podcast is currently a top 30 nutrition podcast and a top 100 health and fitness podcast. I had no idea what I was doing when I started this podcast. But what I realized was every single process is the same. You start off and you're pretty bad. And you can decide how much effort you're going to put into it, and you can get pretty good pretty fast. And then you make some mistakes, and then you hit a plateau, and then you quit, and then you gain the weight back, and then you learn. Can you learn from the mistakes that you made? So I'm making some viral videos. Things are going well. I'm having great engagement with all of y'all, and I'm feeling like I'm living in my purpose, and I'm so proud of myself. But then I start making some videos that just kind of suck. And I try some different things, and they suck. They're not well perceived. I'm getting bad comments. I'm getting bad DMs. Okay, can I learn? Okay, my energy's different on camera now. I don't know what I'm doing. Can I learn? Right? This is a failure. Can I learn from the failure, or do you just quit? So what I do is I close my eyes and I go, okay, I'm in a plateau on social media. This was a couple months ago. I was making content that just didn't have the same vibe, right? I was trying some different things and it didn't work. Do you quit? Then I closed my eyes and I remembered every time that I ever quit on my weight loss journey. I quit on my weight loss journey for 5 consecutive years. Every time that things got hard. Things were hard in this process as well. This is where I used to quit. What if I just don't quit? Okay, let's just not quit. Boom, let's get back. Let's keep trying different things. Start trying different things. The community's flourishing now in a way that it never has. If I just quit, you wouldn't be listening to this podcast right now, right? And there's an element of you just become the kind of person that figures it out. You become the kind of person that learns from the things that you've done before. You can take that frame and look at it even more historically. If you're fat as fuck right now the way that I used to be, think about what you've learned from the other things that you've done in your life. What's the hardest thing you've ever done? What did you learn, and how can you take that lesson and apply it to weight loss? You probably learned that hard work and effort equals reward. You probably learned that you have to educate yourself on something if you want to get good at it. And you just start taking all the lessons of these things that you've learned in other areas of life and apply it to weight loss. And then you take the lessons you learned from weight loss and you apply it to other areas of life. And now it's just this infinite cycle of every process is actually the same. Every process is the same. So when I moved to Austin, I moved down here to really to join the ultra running community. My goal was I'm going to run a 100-mile race. I would be the third person ever to run a 100-mile race after losing 100 pounds. The first person is David Goggins. The second person is this guy who released like a 5-minute YouTube video on it, but never really talked about it ever again. And then the third person's going to be me. And I'm going to hire a documentary crew who's going to film the process of me training for this race. At this point, I'm running like 50, 60 miles a week. Who's going to film the process of me running this race. And then I'm going to sell the documentary to Netflix. And it's going to be called 100 for 100. And that's how I'm going to come out with my story. That was my plan. And then if you've heard my story before, you know that I got diagnosed with an electrical heart issue, had to get surgery, and that derailed my ultra running career. And the amount of pain that I felt coming out of that, because my identity was an ultra runner. It wasn't a guy that used to be fat. It was a distance runner. And I lost all this weight, man, and I keep the weight off by running 50 to 60 miles a week. What I learned was I got to find something else to work on. And people say that you can't out-train a bad diet. People that say that are not ultra runners. If you run 50 miles a week, you can out-train a bad diet most of the time. You can out-train eating a bunch of bullshit most of the time. And that's not what I was doing always, but I'm still eating like a lot of processed food. I was still eating out 3 or 4 times a week at Chick-fil-A, or I'd get Burger King on the way home sometimes. And I was still drinking a lot of alcohol at the time, going out on Friday and Saturday nights because I was new to this city and wanted to meet people. And what I did was I took that focus that I learned through losing weight. I took that discipline and that get better through educating myself that I learned through ultra running, and I applied it to food. And I actually still don't have that healthy of a relationship with food. And this was about 2.5 years ago. Even though I've lost weight and everyone thinks I'm, this ultra healthy guy, it's like I look better, but I still don't feel great. And I started addressing eating more whole and natural foods. And I started addressing patterns around foods and setting up my environment in a way that's really conducive to me having a healthier relationship with food. And had this not happened, had I never been diagnosed with that heart issue that's now 100% cured, and thank God, we wouldn't be here on this podcast because I would just be out ultra running right now because that was my obsession. So in hindsight, I'm glad that happened because it forced me to address the thing that I had never really addressed. And here we are telling the story about it and trying to change the world and be a positive impact to people that have similar issues and similar struggles that I did with obesity, relationship with food, lack of motivation. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know how to do it. I just don't think that I have what it takes. I'm just big boned. My genetics. I've been there. I get it. So I wasn't the weight loss guy. And I really never was the weight loss guy until I started posting on Instagram. So now I'm the weight loss guy. Now I'm just 5 years in, I'm the weight loss guy for the first time in like 4 or 5 years. And it's funny. It's funny going to these different gyms where you see content creators or people that have their own podcasts or people that work in really specific areas of health and fitness or nutrition. And I'm just the weight loss guy. So in a way, my identity has become the weight loss guy a little bit in a way that it hadn't in some time. And I'm happy with that because I've never felt so in alignment with my purpose and with my mission. And I'm really glad that we're on this journey together. So thank you for the opportunity. And if you made it to the end of the podcast, I greatly appreciate you being here. Please leave us an honest review if you haven't yet. If you're a regular listener, reviewing really helps with the algorithm. And we want to grow this podcast as far as we can. Let's see how far we can take it. So whether you're on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, just go leave an honest review. You don't have to leave a comment. Just click anywhere from 1 to 5 stars. And that would be the best way to support this platform should you find it helpful. Thanks for making it to the end of the podcast. And we will see you next week.